It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Hello to all. Welcome to Divas That Care Network. I am Joyce Benning, and I will be your host for this robust lifestyle show. I would first like to thank each one of our listeners that have tuned in live today and the ones that will be listening to the recording on the podcast. I am just so very grateful and thankful for each and every one of you. And you are all in for an amazing show today, as I have with me my monthly returning diva, Deb Matlock, and her and I are going to chat about wild land, wild soul. Deb, would you please introduce yourself to our listeners today?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. As Joyce said, my name is Deb Matlock. I'm coming to you from Colorado in the United States. And I have a small business called Wild Rhythms, where the focus of what I do is supporting people on deepening their personal and sacred connection to wild nature through retreats and workshops and trainings for other nature connection practitioners. And I'm really excited to talk about this topic today because it's actually sort of a foundational piece of all the work that I do, exploring our wild souls and why that even matters in the first place.
Oh, wow. I love it. I absolutely love it. That is going to be just perfect because it fits right into what you do on a daily basis, Deb. So as we start to talk about the wild land, wild soul, how would you like to start to share with our listeners today?
You know, I think the first thing that comes to mind is exploring what even is a wild soul. You know, I think it's one of those phrases that it sounds intriguing. You know, when I hear it, it sounds intriguing to me. And it's something that I know that people have said to me that they just sort of resonate with the phrase wild soul, you know, like something deep within them responds. But the real question that I like to explore is what even is that? And knowing that for each of us, it might be a little bit different. There might be some similarities, but the truth of the matter is this is, in my mind, the wild soul is that part of us that kind of fuels our passions, fuels our yearnings, derives our actions. You know, it's the part of us that sees a sunset and feels a deep stir from it. You know, it's the part of us that sees a need in our community and says, oh my gosh, I'm going to figure out a way to respond to that. I feel like there's such a beautiful spectrum of how this wild soul within each of us expresses itself.
Oh, I so agree. And I love how you said when you see a sunset and how it just brings something of the wildness inside of you that just enjoying that beauty. I mean, just it's kind of like being out in nature and just feeling the wildness that's all around you in the trees and the birds that are singing and the grasses and just hearing the breeze going through the trees, I think is even awakens your wild soul. At least it does in me.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And, you know, it's interesting you talk about the breeze in the trees because just yesterday I was sitting out and I've got a bunch of aspen trees around my patio here in Colorado, and they definitely get melodic in the wind. You know, the breeze, they call them quaking aspen because they just rattle their leaves. And I was just closing my eyes and just feeling it moving through me, you know, deep into me, that sound of the leaves just kind of rattling in the breeze. And I think that is exactly like you just said. It's one of those moments that reminds us that we have a wild soul, you know, a part of ourselves that sometimes gets subjugated to the back corners because of all of our obligations or routines. And yet it's there with us all the time.
Yes. Oh, it definitely is. We just sometimes get overwhelmed with all the to-do lists and all the things that we think we have to get done today, that the wildness kind of gets buried inside of us sometimes. And for me, it's when I go out in nature is when I can really let that wildness feeling just let it shine, let it explode outside of you and just feel feel how it warms your heart and makes you feel on the inside. So, and for each person, I think it's different. They finding that wild soul within inside of themselves, they have to realize how that happens for them. Mine is nature and animals, and for others, it can be all kinds of different things that awaken that wild soul.
Oh my gosh, exactly. You know, like as you're speaking, I'm seeing an image of like a woman in a scientific laboratory exploring something, you know, and deep in it with the passion driving and all the big questions of what she's exploring, or an artist, you know, at 2 a.m, who had to spring out of bed to go paint something or to go write a poem because that's when the inspiration struck. You know, it's pitch dark, it's the middle of the night, you know, sleeping was the plan, but yet that wildness can come out and say, hey, wait a minute, notice me right now. You know, I'm like you. For me, a lot of my connection definitely comes from being in wild nature, but I also feel it as it kind of moves through, because there are times that I find myself up in the middle of the night working on something that just feels like I'm tapping into that part of me, that wild inspiration that is somewhat beyond myself.
Yes. Oh, how true that is. And that's like, I have a puppy. I just got a little puppy in the last week, and oh my
Oh,
goodness, does some little puppy like that just brings out the wildness in you, the playfulness, the joy that you know is hiding there inside, that gets buried so many times from all the worldly things we're doing. And you just watch them, and it's like, oh my goodness, look how wild and free they are, and it just makes you feel so good inside. So there's so many examples I can think of on being in a wild soul. And like an author, like you said, waking up and writing a poem or writing a part of the story in their book. I have a good friend that's an animal communicator, and she'll wake up at night because the animals are channeling and talking to her in the middle of the night, and just waking up that wildness that's inside of you to pursue something more like this.
oh yes, and I love. Well, congratulations on your new family member, by the way. I'm excited that you have. But you know, I think you bring up a perfect example too. Is that the animals that we live with, the dogs,
Mhm.
the cats, the horses, you know, the ones that are maybe part of our animal family, are part of our family, oftentimes I think can be these beautiful windows for us to access this part of ourselves, especially if we allow it a little bit. You know, it's like I look at my dogs and my cats, and you know, there's certain behaviors of theirs that they just need to be able to do, you know, like smell things and sometimes roll in stuff and sometimes dig things, you know. And you know, whenever they do these things, it kind of reminds me there's a world that I'm missing. You know, I'm
Yeah.
not that excited about the smell in the grass. I thought it was a piece of grass, but now my dog is all excited. You know, so sometimes it's like it's just kind of a little window into the fact that there are so many layers of life, and that wildness is there all the time. And I know that my dogs for me have been a good reminder so many times for me to step out of my narrow little focus on, like you said, the to-do list, and say, wow, what is it they're excited about underneath that bush over there? And I should probably go see what that is for a lot of reasons.
Oh, oh, how true that is. And even with the horses, if their attention goes somewhere, I'm like, what are they seeing? What just sparked their interest over there? And a lot of times it'll be a bird or a rabbit or just some little creature that just sparked their interest to look that way. And it's like that wild connection that they have to hear all of that, where I would have missed it. I wouldn't have even realized it. So yeah, the animals can bring out so much of our wild soul if we just pay attention to what they are doing.
I think so. And I think it's such a beautiful way for us to interact with them and to deepen our connection with them. You know, I know that my dogs, they all have different things that they're interested in and that it's going to draw their attention. And by me understanding that and paying attention, I'm getting to know them better. And then
Yes.
consequently my wild soul too. You know, it's like it's a beautiful synergy of the fact of the matter is we're all wild beings, you know, living in
Mhm.
our different ways. And we just don't often get a chance to celebrate that or remember it.
Boy, isn't that the truth? And it is so beautiful. Just kind of brings to my mind when you do that, connecting with your animals like that and your wild soul. It's like you're co-creating a dance with all the wildness in yourself, in the animals, in nature, in everything around you. You're just co-creating a dance to make the world a happier, better place for all of you.
Oh, you just gave me chills. I love that, co-creating a dance. And that makes me think of the dog walk this morning. Actually, we were walking and there was a yard that had 3 rabbits. And of course, I didn't notice them up front because I was paying attention to my dogs and in my own brain, human mind.
Mhm.
And all 3 of my dogs stopped and stared. And so I looked to see what it was. And it was these 3 rabbits kind of frolicking around this yard, bouncing and jumping. And so we went across the street so we would give space to the rabbits, but we could still see them. And as I was watching these rabbits, it was just this joyful little moment that my heart lifted a little bit. And all of it was because my dogs were responding to their wild awareness, their wild impulses, their wild souls.
Oh, yes. Oh, what a beautiful example. Well, that kind of brings in what it really means to live within our wild rhythms, awakening that soul and realizing what our animals are doing, and just all the different ways that we can live within the wild rhythms that are really all around us in so many different ways.
Yeah, and this question, of course, really hits my heart. I mean, I named my business Wild Rhythms because of how much I believe that, it's the wild rhythms around us, whether that's the day and the night, the seasonal changes, the migration of certain, birds through our area, spring when the babies of all sorts of animals are being born. These rhythms are out there and they're easy to see. They help us ground ourselves in our lives. They help us see the truth of the patterns that repeat, even when there may be chaos going on in the world, which there is. Sometimes it's really helpful to see these wild rhythms around us. I know when the pandemic first hit and I was very disoriented and I was very stressed about finances and just all the things that were going on, which I know most of us had versions of this. I remember walking outside and it was March here in Colorado and the bulbs were just starting to come up. And I remember sitting outside and seeing the bulbs and thinking, okay, at least something is still solid. I can still hang my hat, so that's a wild rhythm that was really grounding. And I think we also have these rhythms inside of ourselves. We have our own version of our own wild rhythms inside of ourselves that are really important for us to get curious about and pay attention to. And see how can we incorporate even pieces of those into our lives.
Oh, yes, I so agree, because each one of us has them in us in different ways. I mean, another thought that comes to mind that everyone can look at and enjoy is the clouds in the sky. I love to watch clouds, and it's just kind of a wildness of how they are going through the sky and the different formations that they have. And it awakens your soul when you start to really look at all the wildness of different things that are around you, the sunrises, the sunsets, and just living in that and finding out how it nourishes your body is kind of what I almost say. It replenishes it. It gives you the energy to go on. Like you said, when the pandemic hit and you saw them bulbs coming up, there was still something that was stable. There was still something that was wildness that was still coming about. And I'm thinking of the trees that still greened up in the springtime, and the grasses, and in the fall, the beautiful colors that changed. There's so much wildness around us, and how that can bring about inside of us to live within all of that and live with the wild rhythms that happen inside of us also.
Oh, I think you bring up a great point too about like what watching the clouds does or can do, right? And I think those are also the moments that sometimes allow us to actually hear our own wild souls speaking. So if you're laying outside looking at the clouds, watching this magical pattern, going across the sky and clearing our minds of the to-do lists and the stresses and taking just a little break from that human the human realities, which are very valid and they're also wild, but they can also overwhelm us. Sometimes that's when we get those whispers of our wild soul that say, you need more time outside, or you need to eat more fresh vegetables, or you need to have more time moving your body, or those little inklings that sort of help guide us on our path to being the healthiest version of ourselves, to being the most grounded and wild part of ourselves. And by wild, I'm talking about that in a really positive way. I'm not talking about off the rails, running around, wreaking havoc all over the world. I'm talking about, there's nothing nasty or awful about the clouds or the seasons, right? But it is wild. Wild is a good thing.
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely. I agree. And when you talked about grounding ourselves, that is something I find so valuable in bringing out the rhythms inside of myself, is going outside when the weather allows and just standing out in nature barefooted and letting Mother Nature just ground you and feel the rhythms that are inside of your body, and how it just, that really to me replenishes and energizes you, is through getting that grounding time with Mother Nature and just enjoying it and just taking it in. It's almost like you're fueling your body again with the energy that comes from the ground to refuel those wild rhythms within inside of you.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I'm smiling. I have a story about exactly that it's kind of making me laugh. It was earlier this summer. So it was summer. I will say I've done this in the snow, but it's a little more pleasant to do it when there's not snow on the ground. But I was on the phone with the insurance company, trying to long hold, and my insurance was changing, and all the things, right? It was definitely a
Right.
headache. And I was just starting to get kind of stressed out and frustrated. So I took off my shoes and went outside, and I'm standing there with my phone on, with my feet on the ground, trying to ground into the earth energy while I'm talking, waiting for the insurance person. And I actually think it helped. By the time the person got on the phone, I was a lot calmer. I wasn't worried about the cost of things the same way. I mean, it was, we had a really nice conversation. I actually ended up telling the woman that I was standing outside barefooted, and she said, I think I should go do that. I wonder if they'd let me do that while I'm here working. It's like, it probably would be good for everybody to go do that if we can. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I so agree. That it brings up a mind. You said it's not quite as pleasant in the snow, but I know I've been outside and taking care of animals and doing different things and have a few moments, and I'll be all dressed in coveralls and everything. And I'm like, I need some grounding time, and I'll take off my shoes and socks and just stand there for a little bit just to get that fueled energy from the ground back in you. And it's just amazing what a calming effect it has on your body to calm everything down. It's just, I think it's just all part of the wild rhythms, co-creating that dance that help you all work together to live be the best version of you.
I think so. And I think that, when we look at it as the best version of ourselves, within that, there is, of course, the personal health. But there's
Yes.
I also think that's the place where we can give most of our gifts, where we can be most in that kind of sense of sacred service and reciprocity with life around us. I know for myself, if I'm not resourcing myself well, if I'm tired or stressed, or I haven't eaten well, or I haven't gotten enough fresh air or exercise, I am not really that much good to anybody else. I get grouchy, I get frustrated, I get irritable, a lot more quickly than if I'm actually standing barefoot, even if it's the snow a little bit. And I think so. It's almost like it's just the ultimate win-win. It helps us take care of ourselves. It helps us remember ourselves as wild beings on this earth. And as part of this dance that you were talking, creating this dance together. And it also allows us to be in a place where we can say, where is my contribution most needed? What can I offer here in this situation, or in this circumstance, or in my community?
Oh, yes. Oh, how true that is, because that just comes in to why embracing the wildness inside of ourselves matters so much. Because when it comes down to me, you have to take care of yourself first before you're going to be able to help others, to help animals, to help anything, because yourself has to be in that state and in that ready to give. And you have to receive into yourself first and take care of yourself, and then you'll be ready to give out to the rest of the universe. So it is so important to embrace the wildness in ourselves. And to me, that's how it works. It's just a circle of web. You take care of yourself and you're able to help the others around you also.
Absolutely. And I think also, the more that we get curious about and embrace our wild self, the more we can enrich our own experience of this earth and the magic and amazingness around us, like we were talking about with the sunset and the clouds. The more that we are on the lookout for the things that stir our wild souls, the more we are going to be open to finding and seeing all of these amazing phenomena, and also the more that they can get in there and change us. Again, that dance you keep talking about, this is all about dance today, apparently.
Oh, I love it. I just love that, is just co-creating that dance with all of nature, with all the wildness inside of you and all the wildness around you. And yeah, like you said, we have to take care of ourselves to even enjoy the sunsets, the sunrises, the clouds. You have to feel good about yourself in order that your eyes will even take all of that in, or take in the smells, or your ears hear the breeze whistling through the trees and the leaves. And yeah, first you have to come and take care of yourself first. Oh, how beautiful. And then you can start that dance with everything else.
Yeah. And when we recognize that yearning within ourselves, for example, we're sitting at the table and we see the light coming in from the window in the evening, and we know the sunset is probably gorgeous. And when we allow ourselves the respect and honor to say, I'm actually going to get up and go outside for a minute and just look. I'm just going to honor the fact that this is calling me. I need it. It's going to help me feel better. It's going to help me be better in the world. All of a sudden, taking a few minutes to watch the sunset becomes one of the most important things we can do in an entire day. I mean, honestly, I really believe that.
Yes. Oh, I totally believe that, because there's so many times I'll look up and I'll see it and I'm like, okay, I got to just take a few minutes and get into where I can view it much better and just enjoy the beauty. Or I'll be inside and I'll think, I see it. I've got to go out and look at the stars tonight. I know they're going to be beautiful, and I just got to go out and take a moment and enjoy the beauty up in the sky with the stars. So it's just hearing what your body is telling you and listening and saying, okay, I've got those minute or two that I can go and do what I need to do to refuel myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when we let ourselves refuel, and also at the same time explore our deep connection to the wildness around us, to me, I feel like that's when those moments can become very sacred and deeply meaningful, and potentially even transformative in big and small ways. It's just kind of opening us up to life and not letting ourselves numb out. It's very easy. Even, I have to say, even with the work I do in Nature Connection, I still have to remind myself sometimes to get up from my computer. The other day I was working on my website and many hours, and I was very focused, and it was not like I was looking up from the screen nearly enough. And that's not how I want to be. I want to be able to say, wait a minute, I do want to go outside, and I do want to put my feet on the earth, and I do recognize the value. And I think that we as individuals, no matter where we are in the world, there's different cultural overlays that support that or don't, and when they don't support it, it's kind of up to us to sort of advocate for ourselves and say, on my lunch break today, no, I'm not going to go to a crowded indoor restaurant. I'm going to go sit outside. I'm going to deliberately take a lunch to work today so I can sit outside today. Those little things that can make such big differences.
Oh, yes, definitely. And there's so many little things. Well, as we have been talking about all of this, Deb, I know that you have a retreat or a something very special coming up about Wild Land, Wild Soul. Would you like to share with our listeners today about what you have that's coming up in September that goes right along with everything we've been talking about?
Oh, I would love to. Yes, I have just a few spaces left in a retreat here in Colorado in the heart of the Rocky Mountains called Wildland Wild Soul, a sacred nature connection retreat. And this will be 3 days coming together, a small group of women focusing on all the things we've been talking about, really letting ourselves sink into our wild selves, our wild rhythms, really allowing space for some deep engagement with the more than human world and the wild land where we'll be spending our time. Hopefully, if the clouds cooperate, we'll have beautiful evening stars and be able to do some connection work with the night sky. And really, my goal with all the work that I do, and this is no exception, is for people to walk away with an idea of how to integrate what we just did together into their lives beyond it. So the retreat, it's a finite amount of time, but I want everybody to leave with their own personal ideas and plans and inspiration for extending that experience and extending their dance with their own wild soul well beyond that retreat. So that's September 15th through 17th, this here in Colorado. And if people are interested, I'd be very happy to chat and send over all the information about that.
Oh, wow. Oh, that sounds absolutely beautiful, and especially up in the Rockies. Oh, my word. What a beautiful place to be having it, to connect with the wild land, wild soul. Oh, I love it. Well, what is the best way for our listeners to connect with you, Deb, when they hear this and hear about your retreat and say, I want to connect with Deb Matlock? What is the best way for them to do that?
People are welcome to come to my website, which is wild-rhythms.com, RHYTHMS. And there's a retreat page on there with all the information about that. Also from that website, people can get to all my social media. I have a Facebook group called Sacred Connection, Earth, Animals, and Spirit that anybody's welcome to join if they're interested in Facebook. And I would love to chat with people. Also reaching out to me through email, or my contact form on my website is always welcome, and super happy to chat and answer questions. And I just love hearing from folks who have a common passion and interest in this deep, wild connection with all of life around us.
Oh, how beautiful. Oh, perfect, Deb. Well, I want to thank you so much for everything that you have shared, and this beautiful retreat that is coming up in September 15th through the 17th, and all the knowledge that you have shared with us today. I just want to thank you so much, Deb, for being my guest on Robust Lifestyle Show.
Oh my goodness, my honor. I so appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. And I look very much forward to our chat in September. That will be exciting also. So thank you again. And you have a magical Monday. And I would like to thank all of our listeners who have tuned in to this amazing show with our incredible diva, Deb Matlock. Please be sure and share this show with all your family and friends. Check out all the other hosts and their shows on divasthatcare.com. And remember, co-create that dance with the wildness inside of you. And just take care of yourself and let that wildness shine, however that may be for you. There's so many different ways you can bring out the wildness inside of you. So just take those moments and let it shine out from inside of you. And with that, have a magical day. Be kind to all. Give your animals a hug and share your love with them until we connect again on Robust Lifestyle. Stay strong and healthy.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.